What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Bad Wrestling No Holds Barred. This is the show where we dig up bad wrestling from the past and then bury it again. I am your host, John.
And I'm Jack Brinks.
And you can find us wherever they got podcasts. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're everywhere. We're on YouTube. So if you're looking at our big dumb faces, super kick that subscribe button so that you can check out all the episodes and come back for the next dumb shit stuff that we have to talk about. Definitely check us out on the social medias. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on MySpace, we're in the yellow pages. Whatever it is, we're there.
We're in my space and we're in your space.
We're all up in your space. Speaking of being all up in your space, today we are talking about 5 times wrestlers got mad when they were asked, is wrestling fake? Now, those of you who've been listening for a while may know both of us spent a small portion of time as professional wrestlers. We are huge wrestling fans, and we love this business and this industry and this art form as much as you possibly can.
And that's what it is. It is art.
It is art. So we wanted to kind of talk about some instances, 5 of them specifically, where wrestlers were asked the question, is wrestling fake, or something to that effect, and they got pissed about it.
Well, I want to start with for you. So, okay. Has your answer and reaction changed from when you, I guess, the evolution of John from pre-training to training to now? Has your your reaction, your opinion, whatever, when you're asked that question or faced with the statement of wrestling is fake, has that changed and evolved?
Oh, absolutely. So because of the things that you listed, right? Like going from, young fan to student to being in a handful of matches, but also along that time, I became an older and more calm person.
Yeah.
I was kind of let's say a rowdy youth. And I've been in some, quote, real fights, and I've been in some professional wrestling matches. So to answer your question, yes, it has changed. And it has gone from immediate being, like, I guess you would say, offended and going on the offense when asked, or when that question comes up, to like it's like hitting a red button, to more of a civilized outlook that's just an incomplete question. Is wrestling fake is a insulting and incomplete question, and it cannot be answered with a yes or no.
Yeah.
That is a yes or no question that can't be answered with a yes or no.
It's a gray area.
It's a gray area. Wrestling is theater. It's an act. It's like asking, is Broadway fake? Is The Matrix fake?
Yeah,
that's yes. I mean, if you're gonna sum it up into one word, then it's yes. But the reason that there's 5 instances that we could pull of this happening is because some people in this world handle their problems with violence, and those people are rampant in the sport of professional wrestling, or UFC or something like that. Some people don't know that when they become agitated, frustrated, and at a loss for words, that you're not supposed to hurt other people. So that's how we end up with this list. How about you? How has your stance on that question changed?
Well, I wasn't like a hothead when I was younger. I got the shit beat out of me by older family members, and so I learned lessons at a young age. But I took offense to the question when I've gotten in plenty of arguments, years ago with people who are, when they use fake blood when they get hit by a chair, and I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, they use blood packets. I'm like, telling you right now, that's not how that works. And like, you get people who argue with you who have no experience, and they watch it on TV, and I'm like, look, I've done this a little bit. This is not how it works. And I don't get offended anymore. I kind of laugh it off. Well, am I drinking or am I sober? Because if I'm drinking at a Christmas party, I'm hitting one of my superiors in the face to show them that it's that it's not fake. But like you said, I use the definition all the time of it's physical theater.
Yeah.
So
It's
and by definition, the definition of fake is not genuine or counterfeit. So by definition, no wrestling is not fake. There's so many aspects of the finish. Is the finish predetermined? Is that fake? Maybe. Is punching somebody in the face fake? No. Is Owen Hart falling and dying fake? No. Is Sid Vicious disgustingly snapping his ankle coming off the top rope fake? No. So it's like there's aspects that aren't genuine competition, right? As far as, you know, the outcome, but no, it's not fake.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into these five, but one thing if I'm talking to somebody who's rational enough to have a full blown conversation with this about, what I tell them is when you're watching The Rock in an action movie and he's doing a fight scene,
yeah,
he has had, well, maybe The Rock's not a great example because he was a wrestler. Keanu Reeves, he's got 6 months to plan that specific fight. He's got a stunt double that is going in and out. He's using camera angles to make things look like they're making contact when they're not. And he's got multiple takes at getting it right. Yeah. A professional wrestler is doing the same thing that Keanu Reeves is doing in one take, with people sitting 360 degrees around them and cameras watching their every move, and they have to get it right, and then they have to do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So fake it's not even the right question. The asker of that question, that's not even really what they want to know, and that's a lazy and unthought out question. That's the issue there.
Yeah.
So the first, so this is, 5 times, but it's not the top 5. It's just 5 instances. So these aren't in any sort of,
it's kind of the most
ranking.
Popular 5.
Yeah. This isn't really a ranking as much as I kind of put it in almost chronological order.
Okay.
So the most famous instance, they just did a Dark Side of the Ring episode about this, which was really good and really insightful, is when Dr. D. David Shultz slapped John Stossel twice.
He slapped him into 10 years prior. I think he slapped him into retirement.
He slapped him into $280,000 is what he did. So one thing I want to set up here is a couple of things. David Shultz went on to be one of the country's most renowned bounty hunters. This is a legitimate badass.
Yes.
This is a real life bad motherfucker. The other thing is, he was asked to do this interview with John Stossel by Vince McMahon, who told him to stay in character. He was under the impression that the character Dr. D would slap the piss out of somebody for asking him a question such as, is wrestling fake?
I'm going to give a real quick, before we dive too deep in, because we're going to laugh our asses off at some people's legitimate pain and misfortune. We are not advocating if somebody asks you something that you find, offensive or that you don't agree with, we're not advocating for slapping the shit out of somebody. Like,
no, there's never a reason to commit violence on an unwilling participant, ever. But this is a disclaimer to the disclaimer. If you pick up a rattlesnake and the rattlesnake bites you, you don't get to complain that you were bitten by a rattlesnake.
Yeah, if you're confronting and insulting people who fight for a living, you got a likelihood that something's gonna happen.
I did some fasted cardio today with Danielle, which I am saying because I want credit for it. I don't want to just do it. I want the world to know that I
didn't see it on Instagram, so it didn't happen.
And this was the topic for most of our hike. And because she's on a very I don't know what the right word is, humanitarian approach to this, that you don't hit people. Like, you shouldn't hit people. And she's right. She's definitely not wrong. But civilized people need to understand that uncivilized people are out there, and everyone's in their little bubble, right? A 21-year-old girl who only cares about makeup and designer clothes is in a bubble, and somebody who works in the NFL and only thinks about football is in a bubble. And so are wrestlers and UFC fighters. And when those worlds, the civilized world, crosses with the wrestling world, and you ask somebody a question like, is wrestling fake, and they slap you, you shouldn't be surprised that it happened.
Yeah.
Should they have done it? No.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be shocked by it. So yeah, David Shultz slapped the shit out of John Stossel. John Stossel sued Vince McMahon. He sued the WWF for $280,000. Vince McMahon tried to get David Shultz to take the blame for that, because Vince is awesome. I don't know if you heard the news yesterday about Owen Hart, but that's an episode for another time. And basically David Shultz was exiled from wrestling to shorten things up after that happened, because that story went global, right? Because John Stossel he's as far as reporters go, he's about as famous as it gets.
Yeah, he's a journalist. He's not some random slapdick off the street.
Yeah, he's not Channel 4 weatherman or some shit. Like, that's a national reporter. So that was huge.
Well, not only that, but I believe he ruptured his eardrum. Is
that's the story? But in the Dark Side of the Ring, John Stossel says he goes to the doctor. He does an interview for the show, and he said that he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him his eardrums were fine, and that he was just carrying psychological pain from the issue.
Okay.
And Stossel goes, he said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing here, that he told the doctor that was bullshit. He really was hurt. And then he turns to camera and he says, did my ears quit hurting as soon as I got paid? Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So it was a work.
Yeah. This is my thing, right? So John Stossel was trying to expose the business. He already had an interview with Eddie Mansfield where Eddie Mansfield gave up everything, including blading, right in front of him. It just hadn't been released yet, so Dr. D didn't know that.
Hey, John Stossel, was that slap fake?
Yeah, exactly. So and then the other thing is, okay, he's a national reporter. You can't tell me he never tweaked a detail or left something out or sensationalized something to make his story more interesting, which is called a work. He's in the same industry, basically, right? Not only that, his whole platform was that he was trying to expose the business for cheating the people. I don't see anybody going after David Copperfield. You know what I mean? Being like, it's not real.
Yeah.
You didn't really make the Statue of Liberty disappear.
You didn't cut her in half. I want to see you cut her in half.
Okay, the next instance, which is right around the same time, which is the WrestleMania 1 era, right? This is right before WrestleMania 1. Hulk Hogan goes on Richard Belzer's talk show, which I don't know why anyone would have given Richard Belzer a talk show. We know him as the least interesting guy on Law and Order SVU.
He was a big deal in the beginnings of Law and Order. Because
I was just thought he was the guy that would like walk in and throw out a snarky remark and then walk out.
So I've been watching this has nothing to do with wrestling, but I've been watching Law and Order since season 1 of OG Law and Order. Not 20 years of SVU, but like the stuff before that. So and he was a big deal on there. So did he come from I believe he was on the original, and I think he transitioned over into SVU and retired out of there.
Okay, that, like you said, has nothing to do with anything. But right around the time of WrestleMania 1, which is the same time period as the Dr. D incident, by the way, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T go on his talk show to promote the show.
Yeah.
Richard Belzer is he's straight up antagonizing Hogan. He is calling wrestling fake, and he's trying to get Hogan to admit that it's fake, and he's repeatedly asking Hogan to put a wrestling move on him because he's so sure that it's fake. Hogan finally gives in and obliges him. And at the time, Hogan's like 6'7", 6'8", 320
22-inch
pounds.
pythons.
He is as big as a person can get, basically, by any means. And he puts a front face lock, basically a standing guillotine, on Richard Belzer. Belzer goes to sleep almost immediately. Now, dear listener, this is in 1984. UFC did not exist. Nobody had ever heard of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The idea, the theory of tapping out does not exist. There is not a way to inform the assailant that they are making you pass out. There's no other option. You just go to sleep.
Yeah.
So
you ever go night-night?
Hogan lets him... Hogan lets him go. He falls on his ass and then hits his head. You hear Mr. T in the background go, "He just sleeping."
Of course.
and Hogan slaps Belzer to wake him up, and he hops too and pops up on his feet and goes, "We're going to commercial." And when he turns around, his back is covered in blood.
You could actually see a puddle on the ground.
Yeah, it's like pulling up on the ground. So the reason I wanted to put these two things together is because this is a world where kayfabe existed. Okay, the industry thought at this time that if the world finds out that it's not genuinely competitive, then it will go away. They thought that their livelihood was in question. If the world finds out that we're not really competing, then we have no way of making money for our families. That is motivation to hurt another person who's trying to take that.
Protecting your livelihood.
Again, don't hurt people. But
so at that time, heels and faces didn't travel together. They didn't stay at the same hotels. They didn't eat together. They weren't seen anywhere together. This wasn't like you don't get a rivalry of Sami Zayn and Styles beating the shit out of each other, but they're road buddies. Like that's not a thing. And that if you attempted that, you would be blackballed from the industry. Like that your life's over.
Right. Yeah. So for these two, for Dr. D and for Hogan, the term fake in their minds means the whole thing is going away.
Yeah.
That's what it meant to them. After this happens, Vince McMahon does a press release and he admits that it is entertainment. He calls it sports entertainment. It gets released to all the news outlets. The cat is out of the bag. The reason that Vince did it was so that they wouldn't get taxed by the venues.
For sporting.
For being a sport, right? Because they were taxing them some absurd amount, and he didn't want that, which is smart, I think. So now they're getting taxed the same way that Broadway was.
Well, plus I think you then circumvent in some of these states athletic commissions.
Exactly.
And you don't have to go through all that rigmarole and BS of that.
Yes. So now we're moving into another era, an era where the world is at large aware that it's entertainment. Okay.
Well,
but the question still comes up: is it fake? But now it means something different.
And in that transition, so a little bit of background for people. So in that transition, everyone feared, okay, if the secret's out, then this is done. It had zero effect on the industry.
Yeah.
Had zero effect. Yeah. The industry just went up from there. Not because of that. It just didn't. People were like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then you have new fans, right? You have me as a 5-year-old that wasn't cognizant of that press release.
Same here, yeah.
And so I thought it was real when I was a kid, and all kids will think it's real, and that's fine. No, I don't see John Stossel trying to prove Santa Claus fake. You know what I mean? Like it's fine for kids to think stuff is real. So now we're in a world where everyone knows, right? And you fast forward to, I think like early 90s, like mid 90s, probably about 96, I would guess. And you have Vader and The Undertaker on Good Morning Kuwait, a Kuwaiti morning talk show.
That's my favorite show growing up. I used to watch it every morning.
Yeah. My coffee and Good Morning Kuwait. I'm not going to give you guys a bio on the Undertaker because we all know everything there is to know about the Undertaker. By the way, watch The Last Ride on the network. It's amazing. But I will give you a little bit of background on Vader. We all can picture Vader, our favorite character on Boy Meets World. Vader is a person who Stan Hansen knocked his eye out in a wrestling match. I saw it. Vader took his grubby hand, picked up his own eye, and put it back in his head and finished the match. Vader is a person who was diagnosed with degenerative heart disease and said he wanted to die in the ring, and basically did. He wasn't literally in the ring, but he wrestled until the day he died, knowing that he was going to die. Now, I tell you that to tell you this. Some little pissant reporter in Kuwait asked him if wrestling was fake. Okay, so now the question is the same, but it means something different.
Yeah.
He asks, here in Kuwait, they say that it's fake, that it's an act. The Undertaker answers the question first.
Very politically.
He is very calm, very diplomatic, very visibly agitated by it.
Yeah.
Right? Because he obviously has his share of stories of being tough as well. And he answers the question. The reporter goes to move on, and Leon stops him and goes, "I'd like to answer the question." And the guy goes, "Well, I'm going to ask you a different question." All 450 pounds of Vader goes, "Well, I want to answer that question." And the guy goes,
"Oh, okay."
Okay. And he makes a brief little, like, he's trying to keep the beast in. He makes a calm little, like, he's a lot more diplomatic than me, and I think your question's insulting. And then he stands up and he flips the table over, and he grabs the guy by the tie, and he goes, "Is that fucking fake?" right in the guy's face. That's about where the video ends, but that's not where the story ends. So the real story there is, I sent you that video and you told me it looked like a work. Well, it turns out that it's like half a work. That Undertaker had been told by the producers that question was coming, and he had instructed Leon to not say anything and keep his cool.
That didn't happen. How'd that go over?
Which did not. Which didn't work out. The other thing that's funny about this is that Vader got arrested for that, and he spent 2 weeks in jail, not because of the assault, but because of saying fuck on TV.
You can throw shit, you can choke a guy with his tie. Don't say the F word.
He got arrested for saying fuck, and then it happened to be at the very beginning of a religious holiday, and the government took 2 weeks off.
I bet you nobody fucked with him in jail. Not a single person.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
Wonder if they let him wear his mask.
Yeah.
Vader bombs for all you Kuwaitis.
Oh man. So the next one also takes place outside of the US. It's in Mexico, and it involves Randy Orton.
Yeah.
To say that Randy Orton has a temper problem would be like saying that Jeff Bezos has a money problem. Like, if you list when Randy's retired and gone his attributes, tall, athletic, handsome, angry is number one on the list.
I've read that he's grown up a lot, calmed down a lot.
Yeah. But
I remember stories of when he was young and starting. It might have been around the Evolution era, and something like $30,000 of damage to hotel rooms, and just going crazy. I don't know if there was substance stuff or drinking, or it's just being a young whatnot, but that's not the person you really want to ask that kind of question to. He's also an imposing human being.
He's every bit of 6'5".
He looks like an action figure.
He does look like, I remember, this is a long time ago, he was doing like the highlight reel or something like that, and Jake Roberts came in and interfered in the interview, and they went nose to nose, and I remember going, holy shit, Orton is tall. He had already been on my TV for 5 years at that point, and I was like, whoa. He is a huge human being. And so a very small, I'll call the man petite, Mexican reporter asks Randy, I'm paraphrasing here, something to the effect of, "You get injured a lot. Aren't you kind of fragile for this?"
That's just an insult, period.
The implication being it's not even real.
Yeah.
And you're kind of a pussy for getting hurt doing it. Right? And Randy already being a hothead loses his shit. he takes the guy's glasses off of his head. And by the way, I know this is kind of late. I'm going to link videos to all of this for you guys. He takes the guy's glasses off of his head and throws them on the ground and gets right in the guy's face. He has to bend at the waist to do it. and he starts just screaming in the guy's face, like, say it again. I dare you to say it again. And obviously the guy backs down because it would take two of him to be one Randy Orton, and then he just storms off. So not exactly violent, but that guy definitely was shitting his pants. The question, though, I couldn't believe how dumb that guy was for asking that question.
That's like challenging OJ when he's putting gloves on.
I know you didn't do it, but if you had, how would you have?
It goes back to what I said in the beginning. So when I was growing up, I remember an incident of I call one of my older brothers. We're not related, but I grew up with him, and I was a little shit, and I was playing a video game, and he turned it off. So I stood up and I punched him in the face, and that went over like a ton of bricks. I got my ass whooped with coat hangers and punches, and I learned real quick, don't mess with people older than you. There's always somebody bigger, there's always somebody tougher, there's always somebody stronger. Now, I'm not gonna back down, and you got to defend yourself and whatnot, but when there's that big of a difference and you have to stand on not a step stool, a ladder to talk to somebody, and you could fit your entire body in one of their pant legs, and he's probably what then, like 4% body fat, maybe 5%. Yeah, that's not a very intelligent thing to ask.
Yeah, Jesus, like, and it's like I said at the beginning, like, you should never hurt somebody. Yeah. You shouldn't, but some people do, and you should be aware of that. And you should not prod the people that do. You just shouldn't do it. And asking someone a question like, aren't you kind of fragile for this? The guy's holding the championship belt over his shoulder at the time. Yeah. Also, like, Orton is the champion of the world. Aren't you kind of fragile for this? I can't believe that he didn't throttle that guy.
Yeah.
If somebody asked Vader that,
especially while he's holding a belt,
they're no longer with us.
So the question, like, you talk about the eras, right? So the first two, you're in this era of the secret's not out, and you got to protect. Yeah. You got to protect the business. You got to protect your reputation. You got to protect your family and your livelihood. Well, now the secret's out, and now it's more of it's not an inquiring insult. It's a targeted, I know this is staged and fake, so now I'm just gonna say it to your face, and it's like poking a bear, and so now it's a defensive. Yeah. Okay, fine, let me show you how fake it is. I think everyone who wrestles hopes for that moment when someone goes, "Prove it." Oh yes, thank you. Yeah, just hit me, show me.
So like I said, Danielle and I are having this conversation the whole time we're hiking, and I told her that the other thing that comes up somewhat frequently in sort of the same conversation is if a fan jumps the guardrail.
Oh yeah.
Right? This is a problem twofold. One, you don't know how dangerous that person is. They could have anthrax, a knife, gun, who knows, right? The other thing is, if they manage to hurt one of the wrestlers, that is not good. That brings the whole show to a halt, right? Because these tough guys who are supposed to be in there acting like they're fighting get hurt by a fan. So the only way that you could stop those two things from happening is to crush that person. Yeah. And there, you could go down a long YouTube rabbit hole of people jumping the guardrail and getting fucked.
Two pop in my head immediately, and that's Max Justice in the garage. The incident on Beyond the Mat. I think Vinny Massaro or Jardy was in that clip. And then I think it was it Bash at the Beach, when someone threw a rock in the ring and hit, it was like Hall or Nash hit one of them with a rock,
Oh,
and they went into the crowd and just
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
pummeled
Forgot
the
about that
shit
one.
out of him.
Well, there's one where it's the Road Warriors, and Hawk is in the Road Warriors. I don't know if you heard me. Hawk is in the ring, and Animal is on the apron, and this is in WWF, and a guy jumps the guardrail, gets past security, and he goes to slide under the bottom rope right next to Animal's foot.
Nope.
The first thing you have to do when you slide is stick your head in the ring. Animal stomped his head like he was a cockroach and stopped him in his tracks right there. I'm like, I don't know what happened to that guy, but I'm guessing he forgot the third grade.
We need to get him on the show and ask him about that.
Animal or the guy?
Animal. The other guy, he's not answering any questions. I think he grew up to be Stephen Hawking.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. All right, moving on. The fifth instance. This one's interesting to me because it flips the question on its head, and this was an unprovoked answer. So this is an interview that Finley was giving. Yeah. And it's like a shoot interview. He's really calm. He's really like docile and level-headed and well-spoken. The video that I watched, he starts out answering a completely separate question, and then he goes off on a little tangent on his own. Nobody even asked him a question, but he starts talking about that he was a star and all this stuff, or trying to be a star, and that when he would be in bars, people would come up to him and they would ask him if wrestling was fake. And his way of handling it, rather than trying to explain to them that it was real, was for them to prove to him that it was fake. Okay, if it's fake, prove it. And the way that he would do this is he would grab a hold of their thumb and he would tell them to convince their friend that he was hurting them. That's all they had to do, was tell their friend that they're hurting them and make them believe it. So he would apply enough pressure for them to be in pain, and he would sing while he was doing it. Rather than selling it and going, "Arr," he would sing, la, 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 while he was breaking a person's thumb. And that person would be hollering and screaming, trying to explain to their friend that they're in pain. But how could he be hurting them? He's singing.
Yeah.
Right? And then he would dislocate their thumb, and they would like shuffle away with their hand in their pocket. He said he did that hundreds of times.
And every single time, they immediately stuck their hands in their pockets.
Yeah, rather than going to find a cop. Because that's not cool. So, again, we're not condoning hurting anybody, but that's an interesting way of saying, okay, well then if it's fake, you prove to me that it's fake, or you prove to your friend that it's fake. Here we are right here, prove it.
Yeah.
So basically Finley is a fucking sociopath, but the all of this is to say that's an incomplete question. It's not a matter of fake or real. That's too easy. It's too lazy. Is it competitive? No.
Yeah.
Right? Is it a work? Yes. Is it cooperative? Yes. So is The Matrix, so is John Wick, so is the Mission Impossible movies. And I think we live in a world now where everyone knows that and is aware of it, and Kofi Kingston is not likely to harm anyone when asked that question. But I was saying this to Danielle, people like David Shultz and people who were Hulk Hogan's contemporaries and came into this business at or before him didn't get into it because they were Hulk Hogan fans. They got into it because they were good at hurting people. And if you ask those people, is it fake? They're gonna hurt you. Like that's just the facts.
Yeah, go ask Haku if it's
if
it's fake.
There's a hilarious video. This is a totally off topic again. So the guys at What Culture went to WrestleMania last year, and not the most recent one, but the one before that, I believe. And they had a work beef with Tama Tonga, and he would interrupt their interviews and like choke one of them or whatever. It was totally worked for just whatever, right? They were always talking shit on their podcast about Tama Tonga. He would tweet stuff about them. Well, he forgot to tell his dad that it was a work. So they show up at a Bullet Club block party to get thrown out. Like they knew they were going to get thrown out, and Haku is taking swings. And it's all on video. Yeah, tell Haku it's fake. See what happens.
And then report to us what your findings are.
Yeah, exactly. So I know this is probably going to stir up some conversation. We want to hear from you guys. So get in the comment section. Let us know what you think about this. Hit us up on Instagram at Good Bad No Holds Barred. Ask your questions. We definitely want to have a conversation about this with you guys. Or if you want to throw down, meet me by the monkey bars after 3.
If you're in the business, leave a little story. Shoot us a story about one time that you were asked, "Is wrestling fake?"
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be interesting to hear some stories.
If you're in the business, how do you feel about that question? Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to cover it for today. If you are listening to the podcast, stick around because we're going to give you the good news and the bad news. If you're watching us on YouTube, super kick that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace.